It's not uncommon for indie filmmakers to spend months writing their script and then weeks scheduling the shoot, and then of course there's the production itself. But when it comes time to watch the final cut back, the scenes that these indie filmmakers could picture so vividly in their imagination now look flat, rushed, and amateur. Nothing at all like the images that you're watching on screen right now. Now, in more cases than not, the gap exists between what they imagined and what they see on screen because there was no concrete plan for the images themselves. Now, storyboarding is the process of translating what's in your imagination onto paper or into digital software shot by shot. It lets you see how your film will come together before you capture a single frame, and it lets you experience your story from your audience's point of view before you even have an audience. Now, it's important to remember that beautiful shots don't happen accidentally, and powerful scenes are never pieced together as an afterthought. Both great shots and great scenes are the result of deliberate, meticulous planning, and the storyboard is the tool that makes that planning possible. So in this tutorial, we're going to go way beyond the basics. We're going to deconstruct a real scene from House of the Dragon. In this scene, there's 3 actors and 1 room. It's really just a conversation, and I chose this scene because it's beautiful and powerful, but its small scope means that it's still approachable to indie filmmakers. So today we're going to look at exactly how the shot choices were planned to make that conversation as impactful as it was. Now, I've linked to the official clip in the description so you can watch it and follow along. Now, keep in mind there's no single right way to storyboard. The 2 most common approaches are pencil and paper, where you sketch each shot in rough and then match it to a section of your script, or you can use a digital tool like Stencil, which is what I'm going to be using today. Now, if you prefer pencil and paper, I've included a free downloadable storyboard template in the description below. If you want to follow along digitally, just visit Stencil and sign up. Either way, everything in this tutorial applies to both approaches. Now, before we get into the storyboarding tool or even storyboarding on paper, I want to just take a step back because storyboards are not just a sequence of cool images stitched together. Every shot is a decision, and those decisions made intentionally are what separates a scene that feels professional from one that feels amateur. So to help you understand this, I want to deconstruct a scene from House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 2. Now, the scene I've linked to below isn't actually the full scene, but it's going to give us enough to work with as an educational jumping off point, and it's going to allow me to show you exactly how the shot planning in that scene is doing as much storytelling as the dialogue. So if you want to watch the clip yourself, I've linked to it in the description below. Now, the scene opens on a wide shot, all 3 men. Aegon, the young king, Otto, the grandfather, and Cole, the knight, are all visible in the same frame. Now, that opening wide shot is doing several jobs at once. First, it's orienting the audience. We need to understand the geography of the space before we can understand the relationships within it. Now, where's each man standing? Who's closest to the door? Who's centered in the frame? All of that spatial information tells us something about power before a single word is even spoken. Now, the second thing that this wide shot is doing is it's establishing the status quo. This is what the hierarchy looks like at the start of the scene, at least how the hierarchy looks on paper anyway. Otto is the hand of the king. Cole is the knight. Aegon is the king. Now, that opening frame is a visual statement of how things are supposed to be. And now the rest of the scene is going to systematically dismantle this structure. Now, this is why, as a general rule, your first shot tends to be wide. It's the least emotionally intimate of all your shot options, and that's exactly what you need at the top of a scene. Generally speaking, at this point, you're not trying to make your audience feel something yet. You're just trying to orient them so that when you do go for emotion, they know exactly where they are. Okay, so this is where things get interesting. Now let's watch what happens in the middle of the scene here. Now, the director is not staying wide. What they do is they cut between wide, medium, and close-ups constantly. Otto is mostly alone in his shots, showing his isolation in the moment. Cole often shows up in Aegon's shots, showing his alignment. Now, during the scenes when Otto is speaking calmly and in control, notice that the shots tend to be a little bit wider. A wider shot creates psychological distance. It's cooler. It's more composed. It reflects Otto's authority in his attempt to manage the situation rationally. But then when the dialogue gets more charged, when Aegon pushes back, when the tension between grandfather and king starts to surface, the director cuts closer or pushes in closer. A close-up removes all of the breathing room from the frame. There's nowhere for the eye to go except the face. and the face under pressure is one of the most powerful images in cinema. This is the core principle behind shot size variations in the middle of most scenes. You're using the camera as a sort of emotional thermostat. In conversational scenes like this one, wide shots tend to cool the temperature down, close-ups tend to turn the heat up. And the rhythm of how you cut between them is what gives the scene its pace and its breath. Now, too many wides in a row, and the scene will feel a bit distant and slow. Too many close-ups in a row, and the audience starts to feel a little bit claustrophobic. Now, the variation is really the craft. Now, there are also other eyeline and editing principles at work here. So when Otto speaks to Egon, we cut to Egon listening. Now, these are motivated cuts. The edit is following the emotional logic of the conversation, not just covering the dialogue mechanically. Every cut is asking the question, whose experience matters most right now? You really see this playing out in this shot right here when Egon is having a sip of wine. Okay, now let's talk about how this clip ends, because the final two shots are doing something extraordinarily deliberate. Now, the second to last shot is a close-up on Otto, the tightest we have been on him in this entire scene. And what does he say at that moment? He says, "Do you not think of your father, his forbearance, his judiciousness, his dignity?" He's not giving advice or asking questions. He's making a final appeal. He's invoking a dead man, Egon's father, as his last available argument. The close-up tells us this is everything that Otto has left. There's no wider political strategy here. This is a grandfather, out of moves, making one last plea to the boy underneath the crown. And then we cut to Egon, a medium shot, and he says, "Dignity, I want revenge." Now, notice what the director just did with the shot size. Otto's last desperate appeal is a close-up, intimate, exposed, vulnerable. Egon's answer is a medium shot. It's cooler, it's more composed, more certain. You'll often hear in the world of filmmaking that scene endings should rhyme with scene openings. Now, that doesn't mean that they need to look the same. It means that they are in a direct conversation with one another. For example, your opening shot will make a statement about your world, and your closing shot will answer that statement. Something has to have changed. Now, in most scenes, we'll have some type of character or plot change contained within it, but there are times where the change is more subtle. Perhaps some emotional truth has shifted during the scene. Either way, if you toggle from your first shot to your last and nothing feels different from your first, then the scene hasn't done its job yet. Okay, so that was a very top-level overview of what goes into shot planning. So once we have our shots planned, we need somewhere for them to live. Again, you can do this with a pencil and paper using a free template in the description below, or you can do this digitally using Stencil, which I've also linked to below. So in Stencil, let me just show you how to create a storyboard here. So after logging in, let's click on the project that we want to create a storyboard for, and then we'll click on Script in the sidebar here. Now, this is actually one of the greatest things about Stencil because, as you can see here in this demo project, I already have a script and storyboard created. But what's interesting here is that this scene's storyboard images live in close proximity to the story. Now, traditionally, filmmakers would work in one tool to write their story and another tool to visualize their story. Now, in Stencil, we've changed that by bringing script and images closer together. So as you can see, as I write, I can map my story to specific storyboard images that live just above my script right here. And optionally, I could even get more granular than this by creating animatics and associating specific text to each image by clicking on the image and then this little icon here and then placing the scene text or dialogue associated with this shot right here. So as you can see here, this storyboard gives me a great overall view of how I plan on having this scene play out on screen. Now, just a couple of quick notes about this storyboarding tool in Stencil. So storyboards are not only used during the pre-production process. Filmmakers often use their storyboards as visual cues on production days, reminding them which shots need completed and how those shots need to be completed. For example, here you could click on this list icon here and then you'd see your shot list for this scene with important details related to each shot. So for example, lens choice, camera movement, and framing details. Again, thinking back to our scene from House of the Dragon, that scene was entirely planned before it was ever shot. These details here are some of that planning. Now, I should also mention that if you chose the downloadable storyboard template, there's an optional side B for that printable, so you can print on the back of the main storyboard image, which allows you to focus the front of the card for the visual details and the back of the card for some of these more technical details. And if you chose the digital route in Stencil here, if you clicked on this icon here, you could see all of your shot details over here, things like planned shutter speed, ISO, camera movement details, and so on. Okay, so now the question then becomes, how do we create these storyboard images in the first place? So first, ensure that you're on your script page, and then from here, let's click on this add button. Now from here, we can add a shot. Now over to the left, we can add important details, or we might decide to add these details later. Now over to the right, we can upload images. So there are 4 types of images that each shot can have. You can see these 4 shot types here. Now, if you're an artist or you just like sketching your own storyboard images, you can click on this tab here and upload your images right here. However, for this tutorial, we're going to use this reference image option here. Now notice here that we can upload a reference image, or we can select an image from our shot reference library. Now this is another really interesting feature within Stencil, and that's that you can either upload reference images here, or you can use AI to create reference images or storyboard images for your project. And the reason why this is so helpful is because you could just describe your scene and have the AI generate the storyboard images for you. Or if you already have your locations locked, you could take things a step further by uploading a picture of your location, and you could even upload pictures of your actors and then have the AI generate an accurate and cinematic shot that represents your actual shooting location with your actual actors. So let me just show you how to do this here. Now, to create reference images, the best way to do that is actually back over on our main projects page here. So from here, what we'll do is we'll click on media reference in the sidebar, and notice now that we can add media reference images. We can either upload images we love by clicking on this option here, or we can select this option to create AI images. Now, if we decide to create storyboard images using AI, we can also use this prompt optimization tool by clicking on this icon here to help us optimize our prompt. Notice, for example, here we could select our lighting, our camera angle, our color palette, and so on. And then once we're ready, we can add our prompt here and then click on generate. Now, if we like the image that we generated, we can save it by pressing this button here. Now within Stencil, the image will be tagged with a title, description, and keywords, as well as colors. Also, I mentioned that you could create storyboard images based on your real locations, and you can do that by just uploading the images of your locations and actors right here. Now, keep in mind that all reference images that we create on this page are global media reference images and are currently not applied to any particular project. So to associate these images with a project, let's first go back to our main projects page here, and then we'll click on a project. From here, we'll click on this option for Media Reference Library, and now we are in the Media Reference Library for this particular project. So from here, what we'll do is we'll select this option to add reference images, and we can select the images that we want to associate with this specific project. Now, once the images are associated with this project, we'll then be able to add them over on our script page by clicking on script and then going back over here. And then what we'll do is we'll click on this library option here. So I could simply click on this image, give this shot a name, and then save my shot. Now over on my main writing page here, as long as reference image is selected from this dropdown, I'll be able to see this image show up in the storyboard section here. Also keep in mind, you can always drag and drop the position of these storyboard items at any time. Now, other simple but powerful features of this storyboarding software are that you can obviously edit your storyboard images at any time, but beyond that, you can also use these storyboard images during the actual filming of your project by, for example, selecting this icon here when this is the active shot that you're currently working on. And then once this shot is finished being filmed, you can click on this icon here to mark this shot as complete. Using this drop down here allows you to see which shots have been completed and which shots are still outstanding. Now this is super helpful for staying organized and productive on shooting days. So now think back to that scene from House of the Dragon. Nobody on set was guessing that day. Every image was planned, and that planning is exactly what made those images hit as hard as they did. That is what storyboarding gives you. It takes the scene that lives so vividly in your imagination and it gives it form before you ever pick up a camera. Storyboarding is the bridge between what's in your head and what ends up on screen. And without that bridge, the gap between your vision and your final cut is a game of chance. That sinking feeling we talked about at the beginning of this video, where your footage looks flat, rushed, and amateur, that almost always traces back to shots that were not planned and not storyboarded. So spend time in pre-production with your storyboard. It will save you considerable pain in production and post. And my own personal observation here is that filmmakers who consistently punch above their budget are almost always the ones who did the most planning before the camera rolled. So if you found this tutorial useful, please like and subscribe. It helps us keep making filmmaking resources like this one. The link to Stencil and the free downloadable storyboard template are also both found in the description below. Thanks for watching.